Redditors, what is the worst wedding you have ever been to? Redditor story number one. A wedding I attended didn't have water on site. The catering only had beer and wine. No one could find water. I was so desperately thirsty, I even tried to get water from the bathroom sink, but the sink faucet had like 1.5-inch clearance and I couldn't fit a cup under it. I was miserable but had to stay because I was a guest of a groomsman. A close contender, they ran out of food two-thirds of the way through the tables. I was so hungry and it was in the middle of nowhere, so we couldn't order delivery. But the party was fun. Redditor story number two. There was a married couple who had their invites revoked but showed up anyways. The husband even gave an impromptu speech about being the groom's best friend. During the reception, the wife kept making sexual offers to random men. The husband knew and was into this. As the reception neared its end, she was rejected by everyone and went skinny, dipping in a hot tub in full view of the reception hall window. The next day, they were at breakfast and asking everyone to go antique shopping with them. Redditor story number three. I was a bridesmaid for a wedding in high school. The bride and the groom were in their early 20s, and as soon as we got to the reception part, the bride and the groom were already absolutely wasted and ended up in a huge argument that escalated to pushing and shoving and screaming. She left with girlfriends screaming and crying, and he started a bonfire and started burning all of her stuff. It was a mess. Redditor story number four. A wedding I went to years ago, the bride just walked down the aisle, everyone is still standing, it's silent except for music, and a little kid loudly asks, "Is it over?" Sutter. Redditor story number five. One of my many freelance music jobs is singing in a very in-demand, high-end wedding band in the NYC area. We play extremely bougie weddings, sometimes even celebrities. Alas, I've signed NDAs. I've seen some poop in the several hundred weddings I've played. A few situations. Situation number one, groom and brides. Father get in a fistfight post-ceremony. Police and ambulance arrive. They are both arrested. Wedding is canceled. I am paid and told to leave before we start. Situation number two, giant blizzard snows us in at a mansion. We have the wedding, but no one can leave. Guests as well as vendors slept on the floor. Situation number three. In the middle of a speech, a guest falls from his chair. Paramedics are called. He is dead. He was a +1 that no one really knew, and the party continued as if someone hadn't literally just died. Situation number four, similar. But this time, the father of the bride has a heart attack and drops. Whole wedding comes to a screeching halt as the bride hops in the back of the ambulance with her dad and drives away. Guests kind of meandered a little before leaving. Situation number five, bride screaming at everyone all night. An example, we start playing the first dance and I guess they mess up their routine. She starts screaming like a toddler and stomping her feet yelling, "No, no, no, start over, it's all wrong," and does this 3 more times. She acts like this all night and eventually gets in a screaming match with my IL. Groom's family leaves. Situation number 6. Small backyard wedding in a tent, but imagine a millionaire's house, not a regular backyard wedding. A thunderstorm comes up out of nowhere, torrential downpour. It floods the entire tent ankle deep. Like a freak rainstorm, flash flood. All of our equipment is soaked and potentially ruined. The families and all of the guests run into the mansion for cover and leave us outside in the downpour. Then have the gall to come out afterward, an hour later, and ask if we were ready to start again. All of our stuff is soaked, and I am not getting electrocuted for you. Party over. Situation number 7. This one was wild. The groom and his groomsmen were openly doing coke on the dance floor, asking us if we would do it with them. We declined. Then the groom kept repeatedly jumping into the crowd for crowd surfing, like 20 times until the bride comes up to the stage and starts screaming at him for embarrassing her. Situation number 8. This was not a wedding disaster, but I thought it was funny. One time I was asked not to be the singer on the gig because I was blonde. The bride was also blonde and didn't want me to be there stealing her thunder, plus lots of other stuff I'm sure I'm forgetting. But yeah, weddings are wild. Redditor story number 6. We had 2 funny but OMG moments happen at our wedding and one WTF moment. My little brother screamed out, "Boring," during the Lord's Prayer at the church during the ceremony. My uncle got super drunk and my boss dared him to run across one of the tables at the reception and he ended up knocking the table over. This caused a moment of panic because we had lit candles on the table, but luckily a fire didn't start. The funniest part of this was his defense was that he was dared to do it and he's a lawyer, so definitely not the best defense. The cringe WTF moment was my MOH started her speech by saying that when we were first met, she thought I was an annoying B word and was confused about how someone was marrying me. This caused a whole bunch of drama after the wedding, but my brother was so horrified he immediately grabbed the mic when she was done and gave a much kinder speech. As for other weddings, my cousin's best man got drunk and was flirting with all the older women, including my aunt, mother of the groom, my grandma, and my great-grandma. Redditor story number 7. At another cousin's wedding, the best man got super trash before his speech. He had a speech written down and he started talking, then he just put it back in his pocket and said, "I'm going to speak from the heart for you guys today." And all of us were nervous after he said that because he was visibly swaying and slurring his words. He then went on to tell a story of a camping trip their whole friend group went on. Before my cousin and her husband were dating, but they've always been in the same friend group. And about how he, the best man, fell in love with my cousin on that trip, and how he wishes he would have told her. He ended with something like, "Cousin's husband's name is one lucky man, he married an awesome chick." And during almost the entire speech, he was only looking at my cousin. This was like 8 or 9 years ago, and they were all early to mid-30s. Redditor story number 8. At my cousin's wedding, my brother came rushing out of the men's bathroom, white as a sheet, and was like, "My God, there's poop everywhere." Apparently, one of my uncle's friends had gotten very drunk and very sick, pooed all over himself, then walked into the sea in shame. Reddit story number 9. The bride apparently wasn't very upfront with the groom about the choices she had made and how much it cost. She wanted a Kardashian wedding on a Kardashian budget. They had to do major cutbacks a day or two before the wedding since it was too late to cancel things at that point. One of the most obvious signs of where things went awry was that some guests had the surf and turf dinner, while others had pasta BC. They couldn't afford to pay surf and turf for all of their guests. They also had ordered massive flower centerpieces for each table and a huge flower arch for the ceremony. However, after it was obvious they couldn't actually pay the price tag on those, they ended up with big massive centerpieces of baby's breath. The entire ceremony arch was also purely baby's breath. You could see right through it, see the chicken wire and oasis. Guests left early and the bride sat at a table by herself on her phone. I felt bad, but they did this to themselves by not planning accordingly. Redditor story number 10. First story. The bride decided to go look at wedding dresses. Store said you need a wedding date to do that. She picked a date 3 months out. Being broke 18 years old, they didn't have the money for anything. The invite said bring your own lawn chair. Second story. The bride started her veil on fire smoking a cigarette. It was her third wedding. He found out she wasn't divorced from her first husband, so her and the groom broke up a month later. Had it in a bar with her gaggle of kids, had nothing for the kids to do. They kept asking everyone for quarters to play the games the bar had. That's it for today, fellas. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.